Oh, hello, friends. Hello, and good to be with you on this Saturday morning on game day. Another colossal game for your Montreal Canadiens on this Saturday. It's Montreal and Colorado live from the Bell Center, where again, what is this? 3 mornings in a row, we all wake up together and we look at the overall NHL standings, and presto, the Montreal Canadiens with their 74 points remain locked in to the second wild card spot this morning, 3 points back of Ottawa. Tampa Bay with 85 points. I mean, the top three in the NHL's Atlantic Division is what it is, but the race is on in a big way for the two wildcard spots in the Eastern Conference this morning. The New York Islanders, who we just saw on Thursday, take it to the Montreal Canadiens, and they've won 3 in a row. They're on 72. The Rangers are on 72. Welcome to the nitty-gritty of an NHL season. Good to be with you. Thank you so much for being with us. We'll get to some of your comments as we move along today. But in the here and now, a big thank you, as always, to our friends at Canuck.com, proud sponsor of the Shaun Starr Show. It is their end of season sale, up to 70% on selected models online or in store. 485 Rachel, downtown Montreal. They're open today, so go check them out or place your order online. Save up to 70% at Canuck.com. Game day, Montreal and Colorado tonight. Lots to get into, in particular, as we spoke about Kent Hughes. Kent Hughes making the rounds from Florida in the aftermath of the NHL general manager meetings, where it seemed like not much is going to take place. Not much took place. Not too much is going to change when we talk about the National Hockey League, but lots of interesting stuff. Frank Saravelli of the Daily Faceoff sat down with Kent Hughes and spoke for about 30 minutes. Lots came out of that interview. But for me, I want to focus a little bit more on Pierre LeBrun's piece in The Athletic that came out yesterday with the peaks and valleys of the Montreal Canadiens season, because I guess I did upset a few people. I upset a few people, I guess, on our last video that we did, Marco D'Amico and I, when we spoke about Canadiens prospects, Michael Hage, and the season he had for Michigan. And based on some sources and some information we got, that Michigan is going to load up with some CHL players and they're going to make a run for a Frozen Four, obviously. And Michael Hage pretty much locked into going back to Michigan next year. What's up with Jacob Fowler? And in the midst of that conversation, I had mentioned that I don't think the Canadiens are going to make the playoffs. And boy, oh boy, did the comment section light up. And let me take a second just to explain myself. For people that watch me on the regular, people that comment on the content that we do all the time here, whether it's me live Saturdays and Sundays or me and Marco D'Amico Monday through Friday, I am what you would call a bit of a diehard, and I have been pretty much my entire life. And if I wasn't so passionate around the Montreal Canadiens, I wouldn't be doing this 7 days a week, but here we are, and definitely ruffled some feathers. And at the end of the day, I am simply just a cautious Montreal Canadiens fan. I am a cautious Montreal Canadiens fan at the end of the day. And I've been pretty consistent. I've been pretty consistent from the jump here. I'm a big fan of patterns. I'm a big fan of dropping little crumbs along the trail that as I pick them up, I start to believe more and more, and I start to see signs of life and signs of growth collectively and individually. And as this season unfolded from the month of October all the way through game day today on this 22nd of March, I have been picking up those crumbs just like you have, and watching this team and paying attention to the details and things like that, right? And so I've been pretty consistent with how I feel and what I see from this team. And again, pay attention when I tell you the difference here. I'm not saying I'm satisfied. And there's a difference between feeling satisfied and feeling as though it's mission accomplished. I feel that it's mission accomplished for the Montreal Canadiens this season. Everything I wanted to see, from Martin St. Louis to Kent Hughes to Nick Suzuki to Lane Hutson to Arbor Jackeye and everybody in between, is mission accomplished for me. The coach had shown us tremendous growth, tremendous patience. Martin St. Louis eats, breathes, and sleeps hockey. And whether it was clickbait, whether you actually believed it, up to you. You can admit it if you want to. But if we go back to November, we go back to Christmas, and some of the more ridiculous takes of Martin St. Louis doesn't want to be around this team. Martin St. Louis cannot tolerate he can't tolerate losing. He's not hardwired to be around a bunch of collective losers. Remember those takes that were out there, right? They were in print, they were on YouTube, they were on the radio, they were everywhere from certain individuals, right? And I had the feeling at the time, I'm like, I don't know Martin St. Louis, but he's shown us enough truth to lead me down the path to believe that Marty's not wired that way. Marty's not a quitter. Marty doesn't give up because things in the here and now instantaneously haven't gone his way. And so that's one big box that has been checked off for me, is Martin St. Louis' ability to coach, guide, be tough when he has to. Now we could talk about some of the individuals. The season Nick Suzuki is having, the player Cole Caulfield has turned into, Uri Slafkovsky trying to figure out how to be a dominant everyday NHL player, right? Go down the depth chart. They try Kirby Dach. They look at Alex Newhook, move him around. Patrick Laine comes back in, and boom, this guy has been an absolute specialist, putting up points, scoring big goals time and time again. Go down the depth chart, right? Figuring out Jake Evans, Yoel Armia. Christian Dvorak has bonded with younger players on this team. The defense has found stability in the aftermath of Justin Barron being traded to Nashville for Alex Carrier. Arbor Xhekaj has been coached up by teammates, David Savard, by the team itself. He has found solid footing. Jaden Struble has evolved into a better player. Lane Hutson is turning into an NHL superstar before our very eyes. And so it's all of those little checkpoints along the line, right? Check, 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 check. I didn't even talk about the goaltending for a second. But it's those things that led me down the path all season long up into tonight against Colorado, that I was of the opinion that this season around Montreal is mission accomplished. They wanted to be in the mix. They felt as though that they were a good team. They are in the mix. They have shown you they are a good team. They've shown you they are a team with balls. They could put them on the table and say, come get me. And they've answered to those critics, right? Like they've learned from losses. They've learned from being in games that matter, in games with pressure behind them, right? What's that cliche? Pressure is a privilege. You're damn right it is. You worked your ass off hard enough to get into a point where now we're talking about you in the playoffs, and the Canadiens are in a playoff spot today. But at the end of it, when I understand that there are 14 games to go, and I understand that a lot has to go right, yes, I'm a cautious fan. I'm a cautious fan, and that's why I said what I said last week about I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. And will I be ranting and raving if they don't? Am I going to be here saying it's time to fire? This team choked its way down the home stretch to game number 82. I promise you, absolutely, I will not. I am filled and overflowing with optimism and positivity of where I think this team is ultimately going to go. And now we can talk about Pierre LeBrun in The Athletic. And he caught up with Kent Hughes in the aftermath of the general managers meetings and had a lot to say. So let's go over some of what Kent Hughes had to say to Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic, and we can start right here where he talks about the disappointment from the players to the management team. Everybody was kind of down going into the Four Nations break, especially considering how well they had played. And Ken Hughes goes on to say, with another good 10 or 11 game run, that feels like it was just a bad stretch amongst what otherwise had been a pretty healthy stretch of hockey for the team. So when you're sitting in a management chair and you're trying to make decisions, you get to a point like they did on the 9th of February where you don't have a choice. They're not ready. Maybe we're best off continuing to collect capital in the draft and trading away expiring deals and living for the future. And then enters the now infamous conversation with Captain Nick Suzuki and the message to management post Four Nations with the run that they went on. And Ken Hughes, and I like this because it's not a dictatorship. It's not Ken Hughes, the manager of this team, saying it's my way or the highway. Remember in like those 80s TV shows when the teenage kids were giving mom and dad a hard problem and the father would say, under my roof, these are my rules. You don't like it? I mean, it doesn't work that way in the real world more often than not. And here's a prime example of that. You know, when the infamous conversation of Nick Suzuki didn't want to see his buddies get traded at the deadline, he says, well, go out and win hockey games. And so Hughes reacts to feeling good when you don't end up selling because the team continues to win. So whether they make the playoffs or not, if the bottom had fallen out right away on us after the deadline, you would feel terrible. And that quote here, I mean, is blazing in the spotlight for me. They made a decision. They put trust in players. The players rewarded the management staff. Everybody is on the same page. Christian Dvorak, Yoel Armia, and David Savard are all still here. You know, and so when it came to the speculation, right? Because remember, in the aftermath of the deadline, there was speculation that the Armia deal was very close. Canadiens had offers on the table for Armia. Kent Hughes on that saying, I wouldn't say we came close on the deal for Armia. By the time we got closer to the deadline, we started to move the goalposts a little bit for everybody. And so remember, right? Remember, if you watch me on the regular, I'm fond of telling people that pro sports teams, and in this case, we talk about the Canadiens, this is a living, breathing thing. And it evolves and changes all the time. And so I feel like I was kind of reading the tea leaves in the right way. When he talks about we were close, by the time we got to the deadline, they moved the goalposts. Of course you move the goalposts. You have to. Every day is a different day. And as Kent Hughes goes on to tell Pierre LeBrun in The Athletic, it would have to have been a massive overpay for the Canadiens to consider moving someone like Savard, Dvorak, Armia. And they were less likely because they didn't think the return was worthwhile. And here's another money point Kent Hughes had mentioned. They would have had to have grabbed players out of Laval to weaken the Rocket to get mid-round picks, and it wasn't worthwhile. You know, so I think a lot of y'all in the comments were kind of beating that drum. Third, fourth round picks. And we knew the Laval Rocket, you know, dealing with injuries. By the way, speaking of the Rocket, what a blast of a shot from David Reinbacher, who's healthy. A little bit of a scare last week with some inflammation, some re-aggravation to that surgically repaired knee. David Reinbacher looking better and better with more reps that he gets on the regular. And now we can talk about some clarity that needed to be provided. Because as we heard last week in the aftermath of Kent Hughes talking with Frank Saravelli of the Daily Faceoff, basically the headline and the takeaway was Kent Hughes is going to or be willing or comfortable to overpay to bring in, you take your pick. Take your pick of your favorite 2C that you want the Montreal Canadiens to get. I see people in the chat, they want, someone like Matt Duchene, for example, right? Well, Kent Hughes felt the need to clarify that when he talked about the interview that he did with Saravelli, saying how it was taken out of context a little bit, saying that they were going to overpay in the trade market this summer. And Hughes clarifies that by saying, I was contrasting the two options, one being overpaying in contractual commitments, so free agency, versus overpaying in assets to acquire contracts, so a trade, right? So it was the context of signing 32-year-old free agents to 7-year deals worth X amount of dollars, right? And we all know, I think we pay attention to the Canadiens, there's a difference between Montreal's strategy and let's say a team like Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is that team that they would look at a 32-year-old free agent and say, man, you're a good hockey player, come in. We don't care about picks and prospects. Their window to win is now. So for teams, as Hughes mentioned, that are in that 3-year window to win, they're okay living with bad contracts that age because they're willing to risk that for championship runs and hopefully a championship. The Canadiens are not there yet. The organization has capital. They're in a very good situation cap-wise, and they have a lot of money to spend if the right player pops up, whether it's a free agent or whether it's a hockey trade. And so as Kent Hughes mentions here, we will be very engaged in terms of exploring ways that can make us a better hockey team, but we cannot be short-sighted in how we go about it. We have to consider the present and the future in every decision that we make, given that we have a lot of really good young players that we expect to be with us for a very long time. And he goes in and talks about the Dylan Cousins trade and how, on this show, we spoke about some of the speculation that was out there that Kevin Adams, the general manager of Buffalo, wasn't looking for prospects. He needed plug-and-play players. So Josh Norris is the guy, right? Buffalo obviously asking for guys like Slafkovsky, asking for someone like Cole Caulfield. Kirby Dach doesn't cut the mustard. Owen Beck, not interested. Michael Hage, not interested. Buffalo needs, again, plug-and-play players. So Dylan Cousins just didn't appear to be the right player at the right time for the current version of this Montreal Canadiens team. So they're going to have to find it somewhere else. And this is the takeaway quote. As Pierre LeBrun ends his piece here by saying and writing, as a rival general manager who did not want to be quoted on the record, happened to say unsolicited to me at the meetings this week in Florida, that team scares me. And that's what we're talking about. At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about this team putting all the right pieces in the right places, taking the right steps to become a team like Tampa Bay. And I believe I have seen enough through bits and spurts of this season over a decent sized sample size that I believe the Montreal Canadiens are very, very close, and that they have basically put the NHL on notice, where other general managers are out here talking about it. And yeah, you see, like Michelle writes here, saying they won't make the playoffs wasn't your best move. I mean, at the end of the day, what are we really talking about here? Like as much as I would love my words to change the fates of the gods, with my words saying the Canadiens will win the Stanley Cup, as much as I like the sound of my voice and I like my own opinions, Michelle and everybody else, my words mean absolutely nothing, absolutely zero. I am a cautious observer, fan of this team. And whether they make it or not, obviously the preference would be for the Canadiens to make the playoffs, but if they don't, okay. It's still an unbelievable season as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, unbelievable season. So, as I've mentioned a couple of different times over the last couple of different weeks, my expectation, and you can go back and look, check the tape, Rod, as they like to say. If they don't make the playoffs next year, that would be disappointing. It would almost be kind of unexpected, and the expectation is that this team makes some serious moves moving forward. And they have, as I've mentioned here in the 17 minutes I've been on, they have all the pieces that are now in place that if they want to make a seismic move, they can make a seismic move. And that's why you have general managers unsolicited going to Pierre LeBrun and saying, Montreal Canadiens scare me. They scare me. So that's why I'm not over the moon. And you can say whatever you want about me. I'm a clown. I'm an idiot. I'm a fool. I'm not a fan. Your words on my opinion mean as much as me saying the Canadiens don't make the playoffs. It means nothing. It means nothing. It's about where this team is at, where they are going. Do you believe in what they're doing? And that's it. And that's it. So we could take a look at all the playoff percentages and everything else. Montreal Canadiens have to win tonight. They've got the Colorado Avalanche, who, by the way, are an absolute wagon. Breaking news, Colorado is exceptionally deep and very, very good. 87 points. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. And as we saw late this week, they went to Ottawa and just beat the out of the Ottawa Senators. And I don't know if the Montreal Canadiens broke the Ottawa Senators when they beat them easily not that long ago. But when we look at that 5-1 win, it was all Colorado all the time. And they did have their 8-game winning streak come to an end with a 2-1 loss at Toronto, setting up the Canadiens game. So it's their third and final game on this 3-game Canadian road trip. And then the Canadiens, of course, have their plate and hands full trying to right that overtime loss at Long Island on Thursday night in a 4-3 final. And they've got Colorado, and then the Canadiens embark on a 4-game American road trip, hosting Colorado tonight, at St. Louis on Tuesday, at Philly on Thursday, at Carolina on Friday, and a Sunday afternoon 1 p.m. puck drop against Florida. So those are the next 4 games once tonight is over with. So let's get to some of your comments, and lots of coming in on this Saturday morning. Thank you so much. Stuart, good to see you. Hughes mentioned a stopgap for Michael Hage. I maintain that Matt Duchene would be an option, considering the Canadiens had considered him before. Dallas will be tight on the cap, and that's it. And we spoke about that, with the Wyatt Johnson contract that Dallas gave out. And the fact that there is history, as Stuart correctly points out, there is some history there between Matt Duchene, who was very close to being a Canadian. And as we saw from whether it was the Four Nations, whether it was Josh Anderson's emotional encounter with the fans at the Bell Center the other night, or early last week, and the fans giving him ole ole chants, and how badly this organization and the players on the ice want to have playoff games in Montreal just to experience it. You saw that, right? And then obviously the heartfelt moment between the Montreal Canadiens fan and Brendan Gallagher that kind of went viral over the last couple of days with the tribute jersey Brendan Gallagher wore for his mom, who he's playing for, his mom, Della, who tragically passed away. And, as Brendan Gallagher had mentioned on, I guess it was Thursday afternoon, we were reacting to it on Friday, that the team, basically chartered a bus when they were in Vancouver to go to the Gallagher family home so they could be with their teammate as Gallagher and his family mourning the passing of their mom and their wife. And, it just, that type of stuff tells you exactly where this team is at and how much they care for each other and how much they are there for each other, right? And so that viral moment that went down with Brendan Gallagher and the fan who she graciously wanted to donate or give the Gallagher jersey back to him, and he reached out to her, and they're going to do some sort of jersey swap on April 16th. Yeah, Lucy Lachance. That's her. I just found her on Twitter for a second. And so, yeah, that's what she wanted to do. And so she reached out to Brendan Gallagher, and of course, social media being what it is, it was awesome. So on March 20th, Lucy Lachance says, "Dear Brendan Gallagher, I feel like this jersey should belong to you. You wore it in warm-up 2022, just before they stopped making these jerseys. This is very special, like your mom was. If you want it, it's definitely for you to keep as a memory jersey." And Brendan Gallagher, 22 hours after Lucy Lachance tweeted about it, replied to her saying that it's incredibly kind of you, thoughtful, and really appreciated. How about a jersey swap on the ice on April 16th? It's the Canadiens' final home game. It's a Wednesday night, and they host Carolina. So, this team, man, all those little small things add up to big things, in my opinion. Good morning, Vidi. Leor, good to see you. A big race, lots of coming up. Ryerson, good to see you. Happy Saturday, everybody. Rick Springhetti, my man Rick. Good morning, everybody. Beautiful day for a Habs game. Rick joining us live on the live stream from the beautiful Dominican Republic. That is how they do it. Ryerson, they roasted you, not me. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. Steph Howard, Habs are not playing playoffs. They only have been in a good spot for a week. Hot button issue, no doubt. As Rod Langway fan club says, it's all gravy from here on in. Let's enjoy the ride and stay positive. And that's basically it. That's basically it. It's about watching this team play games that matter. What are they going to do about the fact that they didn't like that they left a point in New York against the Islanders? And that was the sad irony of it all, right? Like, you went into the Islander game fresh off how the Canadiens were playing, losing 4-3 in overtime, following wins over Florida and Ottawa as they handle two substantial teams to get them into a playoff spot. Then they go to the New York Islanders, right? And the Islanders had won 2 in a row, and they're fighting for their lives as well, just like Montreal is. And as Mark Denis told us on the morning show on Thursday, that the Islanders are terrible across the board. 32nd power play, 31st ranked PK unit. And what do? They score 2 power play goals, and the Canadiens get 5 power play opportunities and score once with the man advantage on Patrick Laine's 14th power play marker of the season. So, yeah, I mean, the Islanders turned into, they found this little zone of a window and then took advantage of it. And we'll get into the Habs and Avalanche. And I personally think that As far as goaltending, I haven't seen. I don't know if anybody in the chat can refresh it for me, but I have not seen who we're talking about. I personally would go with Jakub Dobeš if it was my call today. Good morning, James. Good to see you. Marlo, what's up? James, thanks for bringing this to my attention. I'm going to talk about Alex Newhook with Marco D'Amico this week on how well this guy is playing. I mean, speed is such a weapon. It's incredible how fast this guy moves out there. And I think the Montreal Canadiens, in all honesty, you guys, I think the Canadiens have found their third C. I know everybody talking about the 2C. Who's it going to be when Demidov gets here? But I think Alex Newhook is your third C. I like him so much better on this team down the middle than I do on the wing. And I think if you put him in that kind of specified position, I think you're going to get even more consistency out of Alex Newhook's game. Thank you so much. So, yeah, Marco D'Amico, of course, who you perhaps watch regularly. We put out daily, Monday through Friday, daily content. And, of course, you can find me here Saturdays and Sundays live. Good morning, Charles from Glasgow. Nice to see you. Big game day today. Let's Be Diverse podcast. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday morning. Hope you do well with your Let's Be Diverse podcast. Okay, being last, Shaun, you're not wrong. The competition is very real. I know that goaltending is a real concern. I just don't feel Montembeault has what it takes to get us there. But here's the rub. Sam Montembeault has been like a top 5 goaltender in terms of goals saved above expected from before Christmas. And a big reason why the Montreal Canadiens are where they are in the standings is because of Sam Montembeault. And yes, I understand it's more than the goalie here. The Canadiens' top line has turned into one of the more potent, dynamic, dangerous lines. No doubt. Right? But Sam Montembeault sometimes, and I think Sam Montembeault comes across to me as a guy who's victimized, and his kind of reputation takes hits because for as long as I've been alive, the Montreal Canadiens have been a goalie team. And because Sam Montembeault isn't Carey Price, and he's not Patrick Waugh, and he's not even Jose Theodore, that because he isn't those guys and doesn't look the part and sometimes doesn't play the part, and I think most of us can admit watching Sam Montembeault on the regular that he's kind of good for a softy goal a game. And so because most of us watching here have grown up watching an organization whose identity is based on who's between the pipes, and this team is trying to change that identity and trying to change the perception of the Canadiens and becoming less as a goalie identified franchise and more of a offensive minded franchise. When you have Sam Montembeault, who's kind of average, people, sharpen their claws to carve this guy up. So, I mean, that's kind of how I see Sam Montembeault, whose story is unbelievable. From a guy who was a waiver claim to where he's turned into as a professional goaltender. It's just sad for him that he's not Carey Price in this market, So Sam Montembeault has been very strong. And look at that 3-1 win over the Florida Panthers. Sam Montembeault's glove hand was exceptional. Sam Montembeault was strong in goal against the Ottawa Senators in that 6-3 win, So when you go to Vancouver and you beat the Canucks, Sam Montembeault's in goal. Back home on Saturday, 3-1, Sam Montembeault in goal. Hosting Ottawa in a huge must-win game. The Sens came here, winners of 5 or 6 in a row? Sam Montembeault in goal, big win. I understand who he is, and I never once pretend, and I'm not doing it here, that he's the Canadian savior in goal. No, but I can't get on board with, I don't feel Montembeault has what it takes to get us there. He's gotten you. He's been a part of the team that has gotten you to a playoff spot today. Let's not ignore the reality of the situation. I did not believe the Canadiens would be this good, this deep into the season, but here they are. How did they do it? It's not one exact reason that you can point to and say it's the coach, it's the power play, it's the goalie, it's the captain, it's Lane Hutson. It's a combination of all those things. And that's what makes this team so freaking scary. It's why you have general managers out here saying what they're saying. Pierre LeBrun in The Athletic, in the last bit of his column that was published yesterday, as a rival GM who did not want to be quoted on the record, just so happened to say, unsolicited to me, at the GM meetings in Florida this week, quote, that team scares me. He's talking about the Montreal Canadiens. So collectively, yes. And that's why, when we look back and fans are excited about the possibility, right? The possibility of playing the Washington Capitals, who were the first team to clinch a playoff spot. And as it stands right now, it would be Montreal, Washington in the first round of the playoffs. And everyone's like, let's take you back. Remember the last time? Yaroslav Halak. It was an unbelievable, I'll never forget that run in my life. Beating Crosby, beating Ovechkin, and Ovechkin's famous quote of, the water bottle, I see it shaking in his hand. And the Canadiens get to the Stanley Cup semifinal, right? Think about, let's go back in time. How did the Canadiens do all of that? Yaroslav frickin' Halak played out of his mind. Roman Hamrlik was this unbelievable, impenetrable shot-blocking wall. Mike Camilleri dropping to a knee, one-timer city, scoring seemingly every time he unleashed a shot. When I look back on that, it was an incredible run that I wouldn't change a thing, right? You wouldn't change a thing about that run. But when you look back on it, can you say, oh man, that's something we can bank on, that we can build off of? No. You caught fire, guys caught fire. The team obviously tremendously inspired, and they ran through a hot zone. That's how that was done. And listen, given the choice here, I love playoff wins and I love moving on in the playoffs, but it is about sustainability. You know what? I hate having to say this all the time, but for years, I have been talking about how I want this team to be the Tampa Bay Lightning. I am looking for, and I believe the Canadiens management is on that page. I am looking for this team to be consistently competitive for as long as they can stay in that window. I'm looking for legitimacy. I'm looking for authenticity, something that you can credibly believe in, that they can build off, and things will only get better for the next 5 to 8 years, whatever that window is in terms of a championship. That's what I think the ultimate goal is, not just to, on the wings of a prayer and a hot goaltending, you can do something. Like, as much as I can kind of see, just get in, anything can happen. I look for a little bit more. I want more certainty than, just get me in, anything can happen. When you start to put the pieces of this puzzle in place that tell a coherent story, you will be a very dangerous team. And that's what I think the Canadiens are trying to do. And now here's another cluster bomb here. What an absolute shit show in Russia. I can't wait for this to be over. I cannot wait. I mean, what a donkey clown ass organization, Nepo baby. Get him out of SKA as soon as possible. Ivan Demidov is a leading scorer for his KHL team, a healthy scratch in a game for his club team, and they lose in a shootout because their leading scorer doesn't want to stay in Mother Russia and wants to fulfill a lifelong dream of being an NHL player and playing for the Montreal Canadiens. I cannot wait for the KHL season to be over. I can't wait to never talk about Roman Rottenberg and his ridiculous mythology when it comes to running and operating a hockey team and egos and everything else. It is an absolute clown show. And Ivan Demidov, to me, has shown character, has showed maturity. You don't see Ivan Demidov out here flapping his gums, talking nonsense, creating drama, stirring the pot because he didn't play. He is just, I believe this with every fiber of my being. Ivan Demidov is just killing time, waiting for days on the calendar to turn over so he can get the hell out of there and get the hell over here ASAP. because the threats have been, threats is a dramatic word, but what Roman Rottenberg and what SKA have been wanting is this club team to win the Gagarin Cup. They want Ivan Demidov to stay. They want him to re-sign with the KHL and not be a more or less one-and-done guy. Like, they threatened to send him to basically midget hockey because he needs more seasoning. Let me say it again. What a clown organization. What a clown league. What a clown coach. Full stop. Full stop. This cannot end soon enough. And the Canadiens, by the way, I can tell you this, they're not going to Russia with a bag of money and saying, here you go. Can I get my asset now, please? It doesn't work that way. It's not going to work that way. I believe that Ivan Demidov will be here. He's going to be here this summer. He's going to be at camp. He's going to make the team out of camp. And we're going to be talking about him in March of 2026 when the Canadiens firmly cemented into a playoff spot. And you're not going to have jabronis like me on my YouTube page talking about how I don't think the Canadiens are going to make the playoffs. I will be whistling a different tune next season. But yeah, this saga cannot end fast enough for me. Boyd, good morning. The boys are playing with house money. I love looking forward to every game being meaningful. A great time to be a Habs fan. Great comment. Thank you for that. Free Demidov, Peter Puck. Good to see you, brother. James Gary Hill says it's minus 24 here. Good grief, Charlie Brown. Oh, my gosh. Weather can't end. What's the weather? What are we looking at? It's 2 degrees here in Montreal. 2 degrees here. I will be going to the Montreal Canadiens game today, though. So I do have looking forward to that. It is a radio station staff outing. A staff outing with the radio station. They have secured tickets for us in the Loge. Oh, yes. Your boy will be bawling out at the Loge. Don't forget, you can always get your Shaun Starr mugs at the ShaunStarShow.com. And I can tell you now that I've lowered the prices. And you can check them out here. I'll take you to that right now. Da-da-da, da-da-da. So you can see right here for yourself these beautiful products. Handmade by yours truly. I've been sweating over the kiln making these mugs. I make them by hand. These hats here are hand sewn by yours truly. Of course, I'm kidding. Please tell me you don't believe that. But no, seriously, you can go check them out at theshaunstarshow.com. I have partnered with Le Delivery Guy. Le Delivery Guy, locally based, got like 6-7 cars on the road. You get free delivery, same-day shipping if you're in and around Montreal. So that's the island, let's say Laval, let's say the South Shore. So if you're in those areas, head over to theshaunstarshow.com, place your order, and we can get it out to you if you order before 2 p.m., I believe. Through Le Delivery Guy, locally owned and operated. So we avoid the big boys. And we get that done through the ShaunStarShow.com. So we got hats and we got beautiful mugs, dishwasher safe, microwavable, and everything else. And as you can see here, I'm wearing the two-tone with nice embroidery. And as I mentioned, now you can get that delivered right to you. As you can see here, it's beautiful embroidery, high quality stuff. Definitely don't cheap out on the Shaun Starr Show. So the ShaunStarShow.com is where you could see it. Rick Springhetti on David Reinbacher scored a big goal for the Rocket yesterday. Reinbacher not only feeling better, but Pascal Vincent said the plan is for him to see if he can take another step in his recovery by maybe having to play in back-to-back games. And so that's a very interesting development because before that, the plan with David Reinbacher was basically, you've heard the infamous load management in the NBA, certainly. They were basically doing load management with David Reinbacher as he is ahead of schedule. David Reinbacher, after having his knee surgically repaired, is ahead of schedule. So they decided it was great that he was medically cleared to play for Laval and start to reintegrate himself into North American pro hockey, that they massaged how he would return to form. And there was a setback last week. He missed 2 games that he wasn't scheduled to miss. Then he gets back in, scores a big goal with a cannon of a shot from the point for Laval last night. And as Rick correctly points out here, they're going to try him again. And Laval is back in action today. and you can check it out on TSN 690 ahead of the Canadiens and Colorado Avalanche. So I'm very optimistic about David Reinbacher. I think it's Lane Hutson's future D partner. And Reinbacher, to me, looks like he has all the components to be a little bit of a darling of a lot of different people, because David Reinbacher is going to do a lot of small things, I think, very, very well. Small things that add up to big things. Like, he's not going to be this hard-hitting, physically demanding player that's hard to match up against. He's not going to be Lane Hutson, right? But he's going to have a little bit of some offense. He's going to have a little bit of a nasty streak, and he's going to have other small parts that make him into a top pair defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens. So pieces of this puzzle are starting to come together. James, Kent said that they want to make a team that is always in the mix for the Stanley Cup year in, not just in the window phase. Tony, kind of sucks that Kirby Dach's value is so low. He and Logan Mailloux would be our trade chips. The Canadiens are, listen, I don't know what the future has in store for Logan Mailloux. You know, I speak to Sean Campbell on the regular. He's the play-by-play man of the Laval Rockets, so he watches a lot of Logan hockey. And the messaging from guys like Campbell and others has been very consistent. Like, Logan Mailloux has a lot of the intangibles that add up to he's NHL ready. Defense, by all accounts, needs to be a little bit tighter. But with that being said, I cannot state that Logan Mailloux is on the block. I saw French radio last week threw out a proposal that if the Canadiens are really going to get that vaunted 2C, you have to be prepared to say goodbye to one of these three guys: Reinbacher, Hage, Fowler. And I don't really disagree. And I think Logan Mailloux might be, the poor man's version of those three guys today. And I think if I were to answer that question that French radio threw out last week, for me, the answer would be Michael Hage. But I think whether it's any one of those three guys or it's a Logan Mailloux or somebody else that we're not talking about here, if the UFA market, and it doesn't look like it's going to, the answer to the 2C is, I don't think is going to come from the UFA market. It may come from the RFA market. Hard to see, though, but who knows? Who knows? I don't think the Canadiens are going to be in the Sam Bennett business as much as I would like them to be in the Sam Bennett business. A lot of people in the chat this morning have brought up Matt Duchene, citing years ago how he and the Canadiens were kind of close, and maybe they can hook back up again and maybe finally go the whole way. To be determined, right? But I think it's more likely that if the Canadiens are going to answer the 2C hole, I think it's going to come via trade. And so if we continue down that path of filling the 2C hole via trade, you gotta, in order to get, you gotta give. And you can look at the Dylan Cousins transaction. You can look at the Brock Nelson transaction. If you want talent, proven talent at the NHL level, be prepared to make a tough decision. And that tough decision may very well come down to a Fowler, a Reinbacher, a Michael Hage. I don't know. A Logan Mailloux. But I think if we're playing the odds, I think that is where the domino is going to fall. HUGO, and that's HUGO, that's Hughes and Gorton, they're going to have to put their brains in a room and come to a determination of who's the guy. And I don't know. I don't know how they do it yet. The picture is not clear to me. And as I've mentioned comfortably before, I am not the man to run the Montreal Canadiens. I cannot do it. I can't do it. I do not have the bandwidth to be the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. I am the one person in this city that will admit to you I am not capable of running the Montreal Canadiens. I've worked with a lot of people that actually believe they can be the general manager of the Montreal Canadiens. I am not that guy. Charles says David Reinbacher played well last night and he scored a goal. That nice big booming shot we talked about. Going through all your comments this morning. So many comments. Thank you so much, by the way. And a big shout out again to our friends at Canuck and Canuck.com. Check them out. 485 Rachel, corner Barry. It's their end of season sale right to the end of March. Save up to 70%. Proud sponsor of the Shaun Starr Show. You can check them out in store. We were there last week. Lots of options, colors, styles. Beautiful showroom too, by the way. You walk down those stairs. To your right's the women's line. To the left's your men's line. You know what else is cool about going in store to Canuck at 485 Rachel? They have a cold room. Literally, it's a freezer. You walk in with your jacket, say, "Yep, this jacket does. It works for me." And you can go and save a lot of money, up to 70% by shopping in store, 485 Rachel, or online at Canuck.com. James, good morning, James. I think more players are looking to come to Montreal because of the new culture in the Habs room and management. From your lips, and we can wish, we can think, we can put two and two together, right? Because logically, from the Four Nations to the Josh Anderson ovation to how many people look at the Montreal Canadiens from the outside saying, man, this is the best vibe arena in hockey, right? Like, I know that, you know that. We've been to these games, right? But I've been around too long. I've covered the Canadiens for too long that this is not the first time I have read a comment like this or I have made a comment like this myself. And when the Canadiens traded PK Subban for Shea Weber and the Canadiens had Carey Price in the prime of his career, I thought at that time that those players are going to be magnets. That you're going to be with those guys and you're going to be magnetically pulled to come to want to play for these guys. But that didn't really happen. It's never really happened, But I also can say this, and maybe I'll be a fool, because I do believe in what management is doing. I do believe in the future. I do believe that the way the Canadiens are currently being built, I have never gone through this before as a fan, observer, someone in the weeds on the Canadiens on the daily. So I don't know what the end result is going to be like because you and I have never gone through something like this before. But if I were to guess, I think you're probably a little bit right that the way Martin St. Louis operates, I've spoken with guys that have played with Martin St. Louis, and I've asked them about, man, what was he like as a player, and they're like, he's like this. So like Marty has always been this guy. And I think people can be believers of Martin St. Louis. And if the results are a playoff berth, I can't help but think that, yes, outsiders are going to look at this and I can play in that market. I want to feel the vibe of that building in a meaningful game or on a Saturday night against Boston or Ottawa or Toronto. It's a special place to play. And it's the best place to play when you're winning, And I think if you're a professional without the thinnest skin, this is also a great place to play when you lose because people pay attention and people care. If you're not doing your best and the team is kind of sucking, people hold you to a standard here, and there's good and bad, as we saw last week. And I commented on it last week about the Patrick Laine and the nonsense I saw about Patrick Laine's poison. You can't have Laine in the room. It's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. That's all. It's distracting. It means nothing, And I don't think outsiders in the NHL see comments like that. It's like, oh, I can't go play there. It means nothing. It's a bad take. It's a lazy way to analyze hockey. At the end of the day, you're looking to stir the pot. You're looking to cause shit, and looking for clicks and looking for engagement and reaction. That's all it is. It's lazy. It's mailing it in mode. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. Frankie McCumber, good to see you, brother. Brendan Gallagher is worth every penny. What an unbelievable story. It's an unbelievable story. About who this player is, how he's wired. Obviously everybody learned when the Canadiens made it public that Brendan Gallagher's mom, Della, tragically lost her battle with cancer. But then we found out more details as the days went on that when the team was out in Western Canada, when they were playing Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver between the 6th and 11th of March, that's when Mrs. Gallagher lost her battle with cancer and she passed away. And then we found out, because Brendan Gallagher told us, that his teammates basically hopped on a bus and took the 45-minute drive to go spend time with Gallagher at the Gallagher family home in Vancouver. You know, this is a selfless group. This is a team that is led by a great leader in Nick Suzuki. This is a team that wants to win for each other. And the season that Brendan Gallagher is having is worthy of your respect when it comes to the fact that the guy's on 17 goals. He's got as many goals and as many points as Patrick Laine, and Laine has played 30 fewer games than Brendan Gallagher. But it's the way Brendan Gallagher scores. It's how he works and how he leads on this team. Admirable is being mild. It's being mild to describe it that way. Rick Springhetti from the beautiful beaches of the Dominican Republic joining us on the live stream. Imagine, Canadiens may just have back-to-back Calder Cup winners. Hutson this year, Demidov next year. I don't know when this happened. What a future. What a future. No doubt. Uh-oh. Gentlemen, very loosely, says Morgan. These are all class people here. How dare you? How dare you? And then he redeems himself. I like the Yanni Gourde. I've seen a lot of people bring up Yanni Gourde. I like this. I like this. I like this. And Rod Langway just expands on Rick Spaghetti. How about 3 rookies of the year consecutively? Hutson this year, Demidov next year, and then Jacob Fowler the year after that. Good evening, Ray, from beautiful Thailand. Fantastic. Love how international this show sometimes gets. Lots of comments today. Thank you for being with us on this live stream. Free Ivan Demidov. Let's talk about Lane Hutson. Not only has been fantastic at defense, he's been consistent. Has actually been the solution at RD when other veterans could not handle it. The way Lane Hutson has just evolved as a player and making the constant adjustments to the point where guys like Cole Caulfield are telling us that when Lane Hutson is driving with the puck, it's up to him to decide what to do next. And Jaden Struble has transformed into a better player, and Lane Hutson is primarily responsible for that because Struble told Arpon Basu of The Athletic a great quote about how he operates and what it's like to play with Lane Hutson. And basically what Jaden Struble told Arpon Basu was that Lane's game is so unpredictable and still kind of unknown to Struble at this point. It makes him play on the front of his feet because you got to anticipate what you think Lane Hutson is going to do next when he's out there. So it forces you as Lane Hutson's D partner to be sharp, to be on point, because you just don't know. The anticipation is there. So you got to be ready. You got to be ready for the no look. You got to be ready to drive the front of the net, or you got to be ready to stay back if Lane decides to go on a run. And, as Rick points out, Lane Hutson to me is the rookie of the year winner. Points, obviously, minutes played, the role that he has on this team. Macklin Celebrini is a phenomenal player with an incredibly bright future. And it's unfortunate he got hurt. He missed the games that he missed. But to me, the point per game clip Celebrini is on is great. But the Montreal Canadiens, nobody thought they were going to make the playoffs. And my friend here, Peter Puck, who I see on Twitter all the time, we had a brief exchange on Friday about odds. Betting website Bet365 had the Montreal Canadiens to make the playoffs at plus 175. So still going into the game, the Canadiens were underdogs to make the playoffs, right? If you bet $100 at plus 175, you got back 175. The Canadiens to miss the playoffs was the heavy favorite, minus 225. In other words, what that means is minus 225, you have to risk putting up $225 to win $100. That's how that works, right? So still long shots to make the playoffs. And that's why Lane Hutson is my rookie of the year. The Canadiens who have a playoff spot today are still a long shot to make the postseason. And Lane Hutson playing upwards of 25 minutes a night, putting up the points that he's putting up, and the role that he plays. I mean, it all adds up to leapfrog the point per game clip that Macklin Celebrini is on a team going nowhere this year. Full stop. Full stop. Russell, thank you. Yanni, good to see you. And that's why I think, listen, I mean, that's pretty harsh. I mean, mean, they beat Ottawa 6-3, man. I know the Hamannik goal was bad, but I do agree he does look a little tired to me. And I personally, I think the Canadiens are going to go with Jakub Dobeš against Colorado tonight. Just a read. I haven't seen anything. I don't know, but it's just a read on me. Denny, did anyone catch Kuiper and Bourne saying Nick Suzuki is a problem as number one center, maybe 25th at best in the NHL? Shows how Leaf fanboys can. Denny, I think Bourne kind of walk that comment back. I'd have to go find his Twitter page, but he did walk it back. He did admit that no, that wasn't correct. That he's in the conversation, maybe top 10, top 15 centers in hockey. When I saw it, I mean, I just kind of laugh. I did see the clip, because sometimes, we look at the vaunted number one C's, and if you're not Crosby, if you're not McDavid, if you're not Barkov, like, who are you? Are you worthy of being a number one C? Last time I looked, hockey isn't golf or tennis. Hockey's a team game. And, Nick Suzuki has been on a team that went to the Stanley Cup final. I don't give a shit how they got there. They got there. They beat Toronto. They beat Winnipeg. They beat Vegas. So they closed out 3 pretty darn good teams to get to the Stanley Cup final. And Nick Suzuki was a part of that run, and hockey is a collective team game. And, because Nick Suzuki doesn't have explosive speed, because he doesn't score like Austin Matthews scores or doesn't dominate the way Sidney Crosby does, like, check yourself for a minute. It's still a team game. And collectively, what this team has done, and I've mentioned this before and I'll repeat myself here, Nick Suzuki is like a great starting pitcher. Nick Suzuki is the ace of the Montreal Canadiens staff. When he's on the ice and his line is on the ice, and when they're feeling it, you play at the pace that Nick Suzuki allows you to play at. You are on his clock, and he tells you what we're doing, how fast we're doing it, or how slowly we're doing it. And that is a very special talent. It's made Cole Caulfield a better player. Cole Caulfield has turned into a much more well-rounded pro, and Uri Slafkovsky learning how to be a consistent pro that can occasionally dominate stretches of a game. He's still learning to do that. And Nick Suzuki, all the while, is out here grabbing this team and forcing them to be in the mix. It's allowed Jake Evans to find a comfortable home. It's allowed Christian Dvorak to be comfortable in the role that he plays. And the 2C hole and the second line is still what it is. Can you imagine if the Montreal Canadiens had a legitimate second line that didn't have problems, that didn't have drama, that didn't lack consistency, all of those things? So, there is an element of truth to, I believe, what Denny is talking about here, these Leaf fanboys, and you're not going to hear me. I'm not one of those guys that complains that TSN stands for the Toronto Sports Network. Toronto's the biggest city, the richest city in this country, and they have the biggest fan base in this country. All of those tell us why the Leafs get the coverage that they get. It's not because they hate Quebec and they hate French Canadians or they hate the Montreal Canadiens brand. It's not that personal. I promise you, it's not that personal. But the problem, and I think where Denis is onto something here, is that these guys based out of Toronto watch most of their hockey in Toronto and watch a lot of Toronto hockey. And they dip in and out of Montreal Canadian stuff, but they're not in it. They're not in it. And that's why I think you get casual, dumb takes like that come out. But credit to Bourne. He walked it back and was a little bit more clear on his point of view around Nick Suzuki. Ryerson, does Montebo live in Lachine with his parents? I don't believe so. I think he's in Griffintown or something like that. Marco D'Amico and I will be on the program all week. We've got lots to get to today. I just want to, let me see. We're going to be talking about Demidov The pros and cons of Alex Newhook, Reinbacher, Gallagher, and Nick Suzuki. We're going to talk about Nick Suzuki, top C in the National Hockey League, and other potential trade targets for the Montreal Canadiens. So that's kind of what we're looking at this week. I call it lots and lots and lots of comments today. Thank you so much. My goodness. Patrice Bergeron. Now that's some lofty company. That's some lofty company. So we're gonna get to. I mean, do y'all think Nick Suzuki's? I mean, if you can check your bias at the door for a second, like try to call it like you see it, down the middle, right? Forget the fact that maybe you got a 14 jersey hanging in your closet somewhere, and maybe you're gonna wear it to the game tonight. When you look at Nick Suzuki, what do you see? What do you see when you watch Nick Suzuki play? You see a top 5 center in hockey? Do you see a top 20 center in hockey, somewhere in between? Or do you think the Montreal Canadiens need an upgrade at 1C? You know, because he's 25, 24, 25 years of age. And I think when we're talking about Ivan Demidov hitting his stride, when we talk about Uri Slafkovsky hitting his stride, I think we're going to be talking about the Montreal Canadiens having very good veteran players and their captain leading this charge. Because I really do think Nick Suzuki's game is a high-end game, and I do believe that Nick Suzuki's game will get better as he ages, you know, and ultimately, I mean, everybody loses the battle to Father Time, but Nick Suzuki is too smart, too engaged a player. So I'm very much looking forward to, tackling this subject with D'Amico this week. We'll be talking about Nick Suzuki's place in the NHL and this team, led by their captain, who's on 71 points through 68 games and is having a career year for him. Can he get to 90 points? Probably not. I mean, I think he's on pace for 86 points, but 25 goals, 61 assists this season. That would be a phenomenal year. And I mean, look at the goal totals of this team, right? They're the only team in hockey. Emil Heineman, 10 goals. Doc is on 10 goals. Armia on 11. Anderson on 12. Evans on 12. Newhook on 13. Slafkovsky on 14. Gallagher and Laine each on 17. Suzuki on 21. Caulfield on 33. That is a lot of offensive depth. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Amen. Go back to the collective when the Canadiens won their last 2 Stanley Cups, 23 and 24, 86 and 93. Right? Collectively, this team scored over 300 goals. Collectively. That is how you get it done. The Canadiens going into this game tonight with 14 games left to go, the Canadiens are barely over 200 goals scored this season. You want to win Stanley Cups, you want to get there, you need more offense. More offense. And the Canadiens are putting the pieces to get that job done. This is no longer a team whose identity, whose pulse, whose life is provided by who is in goal. So the future is bright. We are here for it. I will apologize if I hurt your feelings because I don't think the Canadiens are going to make the playoffs. I want them to, but there's a difference. Next year is a completely different year. So we are at that point. So look forward to the Colorado Avalanche, who, again, were on an absolute heater before they lost a close game to Toronto in a 2-1 final. And now they've got Montreal tonight. You can listen to it live on TSN 690. I will be at the game. It's my first game of the season as Colorado hits up Montreal following a big 5-1 win over Ottawa. The Canadiens at home this season, 18-12-4. And also, I don't know if they're going to be able to light the lamp tonight, but the Canadiens do very well when they tend to score often. As a matter of fact, they're 29-10 when they score at least 3 goals. So we'll see what the Colorado Avalanche, because they bring offense. One of the highest scoring top 5 team in terms of goals per game. So It's the second meeting of the season between the two teams. Of course, the Canadiens won in a shootout in Colorado, and they came back and erased an Avalanche lead and then took it to them and then beat them in a shootout, something that Colorado hadn't done until the Canadiens did that to them. So it's going to be fun for a Canadiens team that's 6-1-3 in their last 10 games. Montreal averaging just under 3.5 goals per game over their last 10 while allowing less than 3. But Colorado is so deep. This is a legitimate Stanley Cup caliber team that you're going to see today. They're averaging over 4 goals a game in their last 10 and giving up less than 2. So a massive, massive test. Massive test. And no, that's never going to happen, my man. That's never going to happen. You know, I remember saying this at the time, you know, when I was a kid growing up, Patrick Waugh was my favorite player, you know, and so I would get a Patrick Waugh 33 jersey, you know, for the holidays and stuff like that, and I wore it everywhere. I've told this story before. When I was a kid, we did a little kind of a small class neige trip, so it would be a field trip, and we went to Mount Royal, and I was trying to impress these young ladies, and I went down this icy hill surfing on a toboggan, you know, and I ended up doing like this cartwheel many times over. I fell flat. I busted up my back, like I compressed sponges in my vertebrae, and I fractured my arm on that accident, you know. And so obviously I had to be, it's the worst. It was the worst. I had to be, ambulance comes. I have to be ambulance to the Montreal Children's Hospital. You know, I think I'm in grade 7 or something. And I'm not crying, even though like I'm having a hard time breathing because my back's all messed up and my arm is fractured. And I'm not really crying. I'm like more like, what the hell is happening here? And I get ambulance to the Montreal Children's Hospital. They have to call my mom. She has to leave work, come to get me, you know. And all the while, the doctor is trying to take the jersey off, but I can't raise my arm because my arm is fractured, you know. And I remember this like it's yesterday. He's like, we have to cut the jersey to get it off you so we can fix your arm. And I just started to cry. I just started to cry because they had to cut my Patrick Waugh jersey off. So all that to say, when the shit hit the fan in that Detroit game, which I was at, my buddy Oscar got us 2 standing room only tickets to the Montreal Forum. Back in the day, there was a section for standing room only for Montreal Canadian games at the Forum. So I was at Patrick Waugh's last ever game at the Montreal Forum, right? And you know, he tells Mario Tremblay and Ronald Corey, it's the last game I'm ever going to play, you know? And I remember I was so bothered, so hurt by that I told myself, and I was telling my friends, listen, Patrick Waugh's going to get traded. Whoever he gets traded to, that's going to be my favorite team. And of course, Patrick Waugh gets traded to the Colorado Avalanche, and they go on to win the Stanley Cup. And the Colorado Avalanche were never my favorite team. So it's team over player, it's country over party, and that's how I roll. And so I will never be cheering for anybody else other than the Montreal Canadiens. And at the sake of repeating myself again, I'm just a cautious guy. I like to move at my own pace, and I try not to get too high, too low, because when the lows come, man, they can suck a lot, you know. Standing room is Yanni knows. Yanni's a real one. Standing room was the best deal. Only 14 rows up. And that was the thing too. My buddy Oscar at the time, I didn't know this, that if you kind of knew what exit to go into, like you kind of knew where to run to get the best standing room only. And then what you would do is when you had standing room only tickets, you would wait for one of those rich guys that like doesn't want to stay for the whole game, and then they would leave their seats and you would just slide into their seats. It was a great deal. Great memories going to games, standing room only section with my friends. And that's it. You're born in Montreal. You should. You would think, but trust me, I know a lot of people that like me are born and raised in Montreal, and for whatever reason, their team isn't the Montreal Canadiens. And so I'll be at the game tonight. Can't wait. Habs and Avalanche. And yeah, I'm cheering for the Canadiens to win. And hopefully we can be here tomorrow morning every Saturday, every Sunday live at 9:30 right here on the Shaun Starr Show on YouTube.com. And so we'll be here to react to that game together Sunday morning. And don't forget, you can get all your favorite products at theshaunstarrshow.com with special pricing and free delivery if you order before 2 p.m. and free shipping in Canada, as a matter of fact, just to make it a little bit more international for everybody across this beautiful, free, and sovereign country we call home. So theshaunstarrshow.com, thank you so much. And thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the comments today. And I'll be back tomorrow morning, 9:30 live right here on the program. Go Habs, go.